Hello and welcome to the June episode of And Now for Something Completely Machinima. I am Damien Valentine on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, and I'm joined by Ricky Grove.
Hi there.
And Tracy Harwood.
Hello.
So Phil couldn't join us this time, so we're going to be doing it without him, and he's sadly missed. But let's get on with the show. We've had some excellent feedback, and Tracy, I believe that you'd like to share that with us.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, we've heard from Ben Tuttle in response to our discussion in episode 35, films and discussion that we did in April. Ben has commented on the issue of the lack of films for iClone that we talked about, you remember. He says there's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to iClone. He says, whilst there's versatility, it takes quite a bit of time to get the process down, and creating a full production requires skill in all areas, plus money and a lot of time to do it as well, which he compares to the movies game, where most of the time it's right there to create with some adjustments and modding, but most of the groundwork, he says, is done. So in contrast, he thinks iClone is more complex, and especially with the new tools, which I think you guys are going to be talking about later today. He says the curve editor is intimidating and takes time to get used to, as well as learning the 12 principles of animation, learning to light and so on. It can kind of be too much for the hobbyist, which explains why there is a vast number of tech demos compared to films. He says you can create a little demo in a short amount of time compared to maybe a minute per week of production in iClone.
Wow.
So, yeah, there you go.
That's a little ironic because iClone set out to be the popular tool where people could make video machinima fast. Now they've, in order to improve the quality of their production, they've moved towards professional attributes for the program, which makes it more complex and harder to use.
Yeah, yeah. But I suppose once you've learned the skills, then it's, it does improve the quality of the output that you spend so much time and effort in creating.
Yeah, I think Benjamin has some excellent points there about the amount of work that goes into making something longer than just a tech demo. So that's some good feedback there.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Ben.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben. Now, the next one is from 3D Chick, and I'm going to assume this is a lady. But forgive me if it's not. So this is
1955. You would safely assume that. 2022, no.
I don't know. Anyway, in response to episode 37, May News, and the question about what's your experience on laptops heating up running Omniverse, 3D Chick says they have an Asus, is it ROG or ROG Strix laptop?
ROG
Strix laptop with an RTX 3080 and a Ryzen 5900. And yes, it gets hot when pushed, like rendering complex scenes. They use a laptop fan, and if really pushing it, an ice pack under the fan. But it's amazing, she says, you can run and render in Unreal and iClone on a laptop and do it well. And they do have several external SSDs velcroed to the lid, which she says is a shame given how pretty it is, but even with 4 terabytes on board, it fills up fast.
Wow.
And then she also says, commenting on Unreal, that it's the most amazing thing how very much you can do for free with Unreal, with hundreds of assets, characters, and environments. And quite frankly, I couldn't agree more. So thanks very much for those comments. They were really good.
Thank you, 3D Chick.
Thank you.
Next, we've heard from Mike Clements. Now, Mike's in the process of making his first machinima and asked, what should you do after you've made your film? And it's a really good question, and one we're going to pick up later in the show this month. So bear with us on that. We'll come back to that. Good
question.
Absolutely. And then we've also had a couple of really appreciative comments for which we are eternally grateful. From CD and from Pooky, both thoroughly enjoying the podcast. CD says you don't often, he says he's calling us the A-team, and we don't often get called an A-team, which is great. Even Xanadu, whose film Blue by Teflon Sega Meta Saga. You may remember we had some discussion about last month.
Yes,
basically, Damien, Phil, and I loved it, and Ricky sat on totally the opposite end of the spectrum.
I'm the kind of guy that would kids crossing the grass. I go, get off the grass, you stupid.
Well, would you say then Ricky is more of a BA Baracus out of the 18? I think so. Anyway, those comments are really appreciated. Thanks very much. And of course, if you do have questions or films you like us to discuss, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yes, please. We would love to get suggestions and answer any questions you might have, even technical ones. Phil is really good on sound and music. I'm good on sound and the acting and production. And Damien is excellent on film production as well. And if you have any script issues, Tracy could help you with that as well.
Thanks very much. Anyway, you can find all the usual details on how to get in touch with us on the completelymachinima.com website. And that's it for feedback this month. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you Tracy for reading out that feedback, and thank you everyone for sending it in. It's nice to know that you are either watching or listening to the show and giving us these very kind comments. So thank you.
Yeah, it's much better listening to real people than the sound of the wind blowing across the desert.
Yeah, much definitely.
Tumbleweed, just
yes.
sort of, rattling through the discord.
Takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the news. I'm going to start with a few short pieces before we get on to the main story of the month, I think. So first off, Nvidia has a getting started video, which is for their contest to make something with Nvidia Machinima contest they're doing. They did it's about an hour-long stream talking about the basics of how to use Nvidia Omniverse and the Machinima app specifically. And even if you're not entering the contest, it's worth taking the time to watch this video because it's an hour long, so it's not a huge investment to sit down and watch it. It goes through all the basics of how to use the software, and I think that's an essential thing to do. And of course, last month we kind of talked about how it seemed like Create was getting all the attention and they were going to abandon Machinima. A few days after we recorded that, they released a massive update for the Machinima app. So this tutorial will guide you through all the changes, because now everything that they added to Create is in the Machinima app, and then they've added even more animation tools to the Machinima app that you can use to make your film.
I think sometimes users just get impatient because they want things now. Instead of not realizing that it takes a while to get this stuff done, and you just have to be patient.
I think so too. And obviously I'm a little bit guilty of that because I was saying that I think they've abandoned this app. So next time I will be a bit more cautious on my assessment of where they are when there is an update for one of them.
Me too.
But yeah, take the time to watch that if you're interested in learning how to use Omniverse. And if you're looking at Create as well, there's a lot of overlap between the two applications. So you can learn a lot about how to use Create from the Machinima tutorial. So just
remember, the Omniverse app requires an RTX graphics card. So you have to have a medium level machine to do it. It's free, so you can do it anytime. And the quality of the output is just absolutely superb. So it's worth the time, but it's still in the beta. Well, no, has it gone out of beta, Damien?
No, it's kind of in an open beta. Like before, you had to sign up, and if you're lucky, they would pick you. But now,
right now you can get it right off the bat. It is a little complex, but worth the investment. And there's lots of good tutorials. And as Damien said, there's a full hour of how to get started and how to use the program.
Yeah, so that's the Machinima Omniverse news for now. I saw a video. I watched the film recently of The Batman, which is a live action film. And you're probably wondering, why am I talking about a live action film on the Machinima podcast? But they use the same virtual environment technology that The Mandalorian uses. And they released it's about a 6-minute long sort of making of video, which they spend talking about how they use the same sort of screens and everything. And you got lots of videos of them on set and how they're using it. It was quite amusing for me because they were trying not to talk about it being used in Star Wars, but that's the only other example so far that's widely known. And they're saying things like, so far it's only been used for desert scenes, and they wanted to use it to create an urban environment because obviously Batman's in Gotham City, and they showed some scenes where Batman and Catwoman are on this rooftop and they had the sunset on the screens behind them, and they were talking about how they could just keep that there all day, whereas if they were on location they would only have about half an hour or so to capture that before they had to move on to the next time. And I think it's just nice to see how it looks on a big feature film. I would kind of wish I'd seen it in the cinema on a big screen, because on The Mandalorian you're watching on a TV, and if there are any flaws you're not going to see them, but if you're on a cinema screen every single mistake is going to be very easy to see. So they must have put a lot of time into making sure there was nothing noticeable. And
did they use Unreal for the virtual world?
They didn't mention Unreal by name, but it's the same. They'd hired the same people from Lucasfilm who did The Mandalorian, so I'm assuming it is the exact same technology. They just didn't want to mention the name. This is all about the rights and all that kind of stuff. But and it's just a little interesting to see how it's done for a feature length film in that kind of capacity rather than just a TV show.
Right.
My final part of small news, I say small, but it's kind of big if you're a Star Trek fan. Last month, my film I chose was a fan speculating what the introduction would look like on the Star Trek Captain Pike series, which at the time there wasn't even sure if there's going to be one. There's this whole fan campaign saying we'd like one of these. Well, the show is actually launched now, and they released the title sequence as a video just for people to watch. And I thought it'd be interesting to see how the fan one that we talked about last month compared to the real one for the show, which you can now watch. Obviously the real show is called Strange New Worlds, and the fan ones called it Star Trek Pike. But the intro itself is very similar. It's kind of the ship flying around and all those beauty shots. Obviously the real one is going to look much more stunning because they got the whole production team behind it, whereas the Machinima one has to rely on the assets from the game.
Right.
Music's kind of similar, although the real one relies more on the original series soundtrack, the famous theme from Star Trek, and they kind of put their own spin on it, but it's kind of got a similar tone to what the fan one had. And of course the real one has the space, the final frontier monologue over the top of it as well. But it's interesting to see how the fan one and the real one compared side by side. So I thought I'd just mention that briefly for those who are interested.
Yep. Looks like a good series. I think I'm going to watch it.
I think you should. If you like the original series of Star Trek, it kind of captures that adventure vibe, but it's also got some of the themes from the Next Generation in it as well. So it's kind of got that nice blend, and it's very episodic as well. So you can just watch one episode and you don't have to worry about, if you haven't seen the previous 5 episodes, you have no idea what's happening. It's not like that. It's just, you can sit down and watch one and just enjoy it for what it is. And it is really good.
Yeah.
All right. So the big story of the month, I believe, is iClone 8 and Character Creator 4 have finally been released. And obviously I'm an iClone user, have been since 6, so this is a very exciting development. There's a lot of new features and enhancements in both packages of software. I have not explored all of them yet. There's just so much there. So I've liked what I've seen so far. And Ricky, do you want to talk about it as well?
Sure, yeah. People have been waiting for this for a long time. The user base has grown substantially. Reallusion has grown substantially. As I mentioned earlier, they've moved towards more professional products, more professional features, which ironically has made it harder for a little bit harder to use the program, but has made the look and the feel of the program better. Probably the biggest new feature is the motion director included, which allows you to do point and click animation and all sorts of interesting things. Animation is the biggest update in it. And I think that's a welcome feature, because while in the past they've concentrated on rendering and the look of the characters, they haven't give animation a much love. And in this version of iClone, it's really front and center, much easier. Volumetric lighting, lens flares. There's a pose mixer, which is really cool. There's a brand new content manager, which is a welcome aspect of the program, because content management was also always confusing for me. They've also incorporated the curve editor and 3D exchange, which in the past have been separate programs that you had to spend money for. They've included them with iClone 8 for free. So you've gotten some money there. CC4, Character Creative 4, the biggest change in the program was the fact that you can import rigged characters, whereas in the past you could only do iClone characters. And you can do everything with it. You can do lip sync, animation. They've made an effort to make the characters more expressive. So they've worked hard on facial animation and lip sync and all of that. And the relationship between Character Creator 4 and iClone 8 is perfect. So you can move back and forth with ease. So you can create interesting characters with new animation in a new production environment, which personally I think is the best iClone version ever. However, there are some caveats. While they still have a perpetual license, that means you can buy the one program and have it forever. You don't have to pay a subscription fee. They've raised the price to $599.
Ooh.
Now, I understand the reason why they do that, because they have to pay for all of the upgrades and research. But the upgrade price is $499. That's only $100 less than the retail price. That's really going to put the thing out of reach for some people. So even though these features are great, it's going to take a hit in the pocketbook. And again, I understand why they're doing it commercially. They've got a good base of people. People just put it on their cards. But frankly, I think the upgrade version is too expensive. It should have been closer to $399 to make it more reasonable for people who have been supporters of iClone for years. Giving them a break, $100 break is not. That's like 20% discount. It's just doesn't work. CC4 is the same thing. I can't remember what the exact price of that was. It was like $249, I think. It's lower than iClone 8, but you're going to be spending close to if you're a new user, you're going to be spending close to $1,000 with these two programs. If you're an upgrade, you're going to be spending close to $700 to $800. That's a lot of money. You're basically in the territory of the high-end professional programs, and that means that the Reallusion, iClone, and Character Creator 4 are going to move into a new user base, I think, and they're going to leave some people behind. And I'm sorry to hear that. So that's the caveat on that. But otherwise, I think it's a fantastic program, and I'm looking forward to reviewing it myself and hearing news from Damien on the production side of it.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to test out all those features. I've had a look at the motion director, and I can see that's going to be really useful. And you kind of got this point and click thing, like you said, but there's also the option, if you've got a game controller, you can make a character walk around like a video game character, which is obviously a very Machinima, very Machinima kind of throwback there.
Right.
And if you don't have a controller, but you still want to use that feature, you can use a mouse and keyboard like a PC game as well, that's quite handy, because I don't have a controller that I'd want to use for this. And you can pick different types of animations. So if you want to have a character walk, you can set to the walk animation, and then you press the appropriate key to control them, make them walk, or turn left to avoid an object or whatever. Or if you want them to make the run, you choose the run option, and then you can do the exact same thing. But then the character's running obviously much faster than walking, but you can make the run, swerve around an object, and then have them do whatever. And if you've got other animations you want them to do, you can tie them in. So if you want them to jump over that object, you have them run towards it, and then you press the jump button, and then they'll jump over it rather than swerve around it. So you've got a lot of features there, which I've not had like I said, I've not had a chance to fully explore that just yet. And there's new facial animation features, like the characters have got more ways to move and they're more expressive, which I think is going to be quite interesting. I haven't had a chance to try out the new visuals. I did have a quick look at the lens flare options. And I thought this J.J. Abrams would probably like this because you can go really over the top and have loads of lens flares if you really want to. Yeah, there's more I haven't had a chance to sit down and look at, because at the time of recording, it's been about a week and a half. So there's a lot to sit down and go through. But I'm really excited for it.
Quick clarification. When I say that iClone is a more professional program, it is, and it's priced like that, but it is still easier to use than moving towards Autodesk or Cinema 4D or any of those other programs, even Unreal. Reallusion's iClone 8 and Character Creator 4 are very easy to use compared to the professional programs.
And because they're focusing more on the animation side, they're also adding more options for taking your scenes and rendering them elsewhere. So you can render in Nvidia Omniverse or Unreal, and I suspect some of those formats can be used in other platforms as well. It's not something I've looked too closely at, but I think Blender's an option as well. I'm not sure. Yeah. So if you want to animate easily, then iClone is a good way to do it. And then if you want it to look better than what iClone can actually produce as a render, then you can take it elsewhere very easily.
Yep.
Right. So that's the end of my news. Ricky, what else have you got for us?
While we did the iClone 8, quickly, I just had some interesting news that I got from the Milan Machinima Festival. I joined their newsletter, and it's really good. Even though it focuses primarily on academic machinima, they do post interesting stories and artists. In fact, the artist that I chose for our film section, I discovered through their newsletter. So it's easy to just join and subscribe. And an article that I found in there was a filmmaker who made a film using a pre-trained AI script creator using OpenAI. And basically it can translate text, it can answer questions, it can summarize passages, and it can generate text output on a level that can be almost indistinguishable from human generated content. They use that to create the script. Now, granted, it's not Streetcar Named Desire or, Atlas Shrugged. It is primarily more abstract, but it did create a very interesting text. And I find that that development that we've been talking about quite a bit of AI in machinima to be, I never expected it to go into the script element of it. So check out the link. We'll put it on our show notes and find out more about it and see the film that they used OpenAI to create the film for, because it might be an interesting alternative for writing your own script.
Be very interesting to see that, actually.
Begs the question, what are you going to do as a machinima creator if everything is done automatically for you?
Well, I was just going to say, it's the ultimate automatic. I can sit back and eat Fritos while AIs make my movies for me.
It's almost the make film button.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, check out the link. It's an interesting article, and I urge you to think about it.
Okay,
that's my news.
All right, Tracy, what have you got for us?
Oh, I've got quite a lot, actually. I'm going to talk about legal news. I've got a little bit of competition news. I've got a little bit of tech news and some project news.
Okay.
I want to start with legals. Now, firstly, in April, Cloud Imperium Games and Robert Space Industries, who are the developer and publisher of Star Citizen, as you know, have updated their fan, film and machinima rules and regulations, which actually seems to be more about them posturing over the impending release of Squadron 42, which they state is a Hollywood caliber single player story driven game set in the same universe which will star Gary Oldman, Mark Hamill, Mark Strong, and Gillian Anderson. And they do state they actively support the making of Machinima, live action video and audio drama set in the world of Star Citizen, but have now tightened up their policy. Specifically, that means creators must credit them with a disclaimer stating the work is a non-commercial fan production and not in any way affiliated to Cloud Imperium. You're also precluded from attempting to raise more than 50,000 on your portfolio of Star Citizen fan films, however that sum might be generated. And explicitly, they state that content or material from Squadron 42, once it's released, I'm not sure if it's been released yet, will be prohibited, even if it just sounds like the characters. And plus, putting content of any kind that's been generated in Star Citizen behind any sort of paywall is also going to be excluded. So there you go, Patreon creators. That shot you in the foot somewhat, I think. Now, a couple of things on this. Firstly, I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how this evolves over time, since fan films and indeed Squadron 42 are all set in the same universe. Basically, what they're trying to do is head off, I think, any kind of community-inspired competition for their Squadron 42 game, but it's hard to see how something, how it just can't bear any of the hallmarks when it's created in the same environment. So I think it's kind of an interesting development from that point of view. But also, not least, because last week, as we're recording this, there was a pretty interesting legal case in the US, which isn't actually about Machinima, but was about the film called Grease. I don't know if you guys saw it. In this particular case, the co-authors of the original film had sent a cease and desist letter to a production company called Sketchworks regarding a stage play that they had created called Vape. Now, Vape is basically the same story as Grease, just updated for a modern age, less misogyny and including electric cars, but otherwise a clear parody of the original in characters, plot and narrative, right down to names and story environment. Sketchworks argued that their parody was fair use, and basically the judge agreed that Vape did not infringe the rights of the owners of Grease's copyright. Another point to note here is that in the discussion, they had reflected on transformative use, relating presumably to the making of a play rather than a film. Now, here in that analysis, what I've seen is it makes reference to an appeal case that has yet to be judged, which is where the estate of the artist formerly known as Prince has apparently claimed that Warhol's drawing on a photograph of him was not transformative enough, presumably. That case isn't due to be heard on appeal until the back end of this year, but I think it's going to be one to watch. And in the meantime, fair use and parody, which we've talked about extensively before in the world of Machinima, has become, I think, just that little bit more refined in law than it had previously. And it may well be that Cloud Imperium are not able to defend against content that has been recorded in Star Citizen and which reflects the stories told in Squadron 42, be that either accidental or deliberate. And furthermore, the matter of transformation of content from game to film will also make that situation clearer. Of course, in the meantime, we've seen loads of folks putting disclaimers over their videos. And as ever, the one thing that Cloud Imperium has done is to create another whole raft of uncertainty, just like all the other game environments that have attempted this kind of thing before over the last 25 years that we've been exploring Machinima. Ultimately, the only thing their ham-fisted attempt has done, I think, is basically close down their community of fans. And that will push them onto other environments and to whole new platforms. So I think it's a shot in the foot for them, really. And interestingly, I see when I was just sort of looking generally at their website, they're already promoting jobs for gameplay capture artists, when in fact, all they needed to do was empower their community to continue to be creative and allow them to survive as an independent creator over time. And by the way, that 50,000 sounds like quite a lot of money for Machinima, but you only need to crowdfund a few films, certainly looking at on Patreon these days. And if you're working over a series of 3 or 4 years, I'm pretty sure that 50,000 will be probably fairly easily exceeded by certainly a few of those more successful indies who are out there creating it. I'm not going to mention any names in this particular thing at all. So that was my legal update.
Can I comment on that?
Please do.
I think
Yeah,
you covered the basis of everything, and I think that's just excellent reporting, Tracy. Thank you for that story. My only thought is that I'd like to say is that fair use in the United States clearly accepts parody and satire. It's in the language of fair use. So even if they sue, they would lose because it's clear language. Yeah. However, there's a detriment to being sued. People who put out a thing that's satire, they know they're legal on good legal ground, and the company says, well, we're going to sue you, and you have to go to court. It's a detriment. It keeps people from wanting to use their program to create things and spread the content and the game and all of that, which is too bad because Star Citizen has had some really outstanding machinima that we've covered this year.
It has.
And they're just, what they've done is they've shot themselves in the foot by putting this step back policy in there, this ill-considered policy. And it's just going to hurt their game and their reputation with the fan community.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised by it because from the day that the crowdfunding campaign was started, fans are creating fan videos and it's helping spread the word. And the company was encouraging this. And once the crowdfunding campaign was finished, obviously they didn't have anything to show off. But one of the developers who started doing this weekly live video where he would answer questions that fans had sent in and talk about what they were doing, which, started off with things like, we got our office space today, and he kind of took the camera around and said, look, this is where the kitchen is, this is where I'm going to set the desks up, all that kind of stuff. And then over time, fans got more and more creative with the questions, and they started sending in videos, which I think one guy made himself a costume, which is like this sort of futuristic spacesuit, and he was he'd do it at night, so you couldn't really see where he was, and you'd say he's on this alien planet, but he's stopping his adventure for a moment to ask this question, and and they were encouraging this, and so the current videos you get from Star Citizen, it's all evolved from that happening all those years ago. So it's a surprise to hear about all these new restrictions. The only one I can really understand is not using the character likeness, the character models of the celebrities that they've hired, because obviously they don't want someone to do something unfortunate maybe with Mark Hamill's character, because that's his likeness and he's doing something that he may not like. So I can see why they want to protect that and maybe not tell stories that go against what they're planning on their own, because my understanding with Squadron 42 is they're going to release a series of missions, but that's not the whole story, and they're going to do it in chunks. I have no idea when they're going to come out because it's been so long and it's so vague on the roadmap of when it's actually going to be finished. So
it's probably coming out sooner rather than later if they're doing the legals, because my gut feeling is what they're doing isn't anything really to do with what current machinima folks are creating, but more to do with protecting the IP on Squadron 42. And I really think they've totally misjudged it.
I think
the lawyers have made their impact in the company, which is really helps me understand why Shakespeare wanted to kill all the lawyers first. Because they just ruin everything for everybody.
Well, there you go. I just thought I'd throw my 10 cents in.
Thank you, Tracy.
Next, I've got a bit of competition news. Well, you guys have just been talking about Omniverse, and the Machinima competition is still open until the 27th of June. Obviously, you need to use, as the guys were saying, the RTX kit and either remix characters from Squad, Mountain Blade 2, Bannerlord, Mech Warrior, Mercenaries 5, or your own characters using Omniverse Machinima.
You have to use at least one of those characters, though.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how extensively you have to use it, but you have to use at least one of those characters from their list of provided. You can use anything else as you want, but one has to be
One of
Well,
them.
however you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was 2 minutes or less is all they're asking for. So I do not think anybody that has this kit has an excuse to not put something in. Because quite honestly, you're not going to get a lot of story in a couple of minutes, or are you? So that's my challenge. Yeah, I think I really want to see what comes of this. There's also an interesting lineup of judges, including Dane Johnston, whom Ricky interviewed last year on the podcast, just as the Machinima app was being launched. And I was also interested to see that Rooster Teeth have created the ad for it, which I guess means we all know what kind of machinima they're really expecting, which I have to say I will be disappointed about if that's the case.
Sort of humorous, irreverent humor.
Halo-ish
kind of thing. Yeah. Well, I think it's a smart move on their part professionally. Absolutely. Because Rooster Teeth has the highest visibility of any machinima creators ever.
Yes.
And they have a huge community. So to tie that community in with the Nvidia Omniverse is a smart move on their part.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next, I want to highlight Reallusion's continuous pitch and produce program. I don't know if you guys have come across this at all.
No, I don't know much about it.
Well, it's not actually a contest as such, but a program which offers creators a chance to receive software content and also financial support to accelerate projects, whether they're just on the drawing board or more developed. Anyone who shows knowledge and experience with Reallusion tools can apply, using Reallusion as the main application software. You're going to need to submit detailed plans and visuals. Proposals are formally reviewed on a monthly basis, and there's a process if your idea is accepted to the next stage. It's quite a detailed process, but it's definitely something I think to consider if you're looking to develop high quality projects or even business propositions, much in the same vein as what appears to be much in the same vein as Unreal's mega grant process.
Right.
So I thought I would highlight that one. Next, I found a stunning, and I do mean stunning, showreel of 100 3D renders that was put together from a 3D competition which focused on the theme of infinite journeys. The quality of the work sampled is pretty amazing and was curated and edited together from entries into what was badged as the world's biggest CG challenge, hosted by Clinton Jones, otherwise known as Pwnisher. That contest actually ran last year, but Pwnisher runs a weekly 3D challenge from his Patreon and Discord accounts, and we'll put a link to those in the show notes. One thing to note is there's basically an entry fee of about £4 per month to join the community and participate in the challenges. He has apparently about 79 creators in that community at the moment, but his YouTube channel is incredibly popular for its VFX tutorials. Now, the showreel I mentioned is 9 minutes long, but it's definitely worth the watch. So I'll put a link to the show notes in that, and I'll be really interested to see what other reels come out of his curation of these 3D challenges that he puts up.
Quick question, Tracy. Mm-hmm. When you say 3D renders, it includes machinima, obviously, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes, well, I think so. I mean, he doesn't really... Yeah, I would say there definitely is machinima in there, for sure, 100%.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I also have a contest that we missed promoting when it was live, but in the spirit of highlighting machinima contest, I just want to give it a mention. This took place in Second Life and was organised by Saffia, Widdeshins and Chantal Harvey, who ran the second annual film festival at the Fantasy Faire Sim, which took place at the end of April and into early May, so last month basically. Fantasy Faire is the largest gathering of fantasy designers, enthusiasts, role players and performers in Second Life, and has been running since 2009. Now, Chantal and Saffia ran 3 categories of film entry in their contest, one for fiction, one for factual, and another live stream strand. Creators basically had 10 days to make their film, and the content was required to be 100% based on the Fantasy Faire Sim. The prizes wasn't actually software. It wasn't even hardware or money, but a virtual award, a sort of this wonderful waffly that they created, which looked pretty amazing. I think what we'll do is we'll put the winners, a link to the winners of each of the categories in the show notes. But one film I wanted to highlight, which actually wasn't one of the contest films, was a review of the Fantasy Faire sim by Pryda Parx called, she called it her epic walk documentary of the sim. It's, as I said, not about the competition, but it just illustrates how much incredible design work had gone into that whole sim. I have to say it's one of the longest machinimas at over 2.5 hours. But it's time-stamped for each of the 20 regions it features. And each of those regions has about 10 minutes devoted to it. So you can kind of chunk it up and watch it a bit at a time. Now, Chantal tells me the Fantasy Faire Machinima contest is going to return next year. So if you're a second lifer or interested in participating in that contest with either live stream or fantasy or documentary type content, it's definitely one to look out for, and it'll be about the same time again next year, so April-ish. Gives you plenty of time to learn how to create machinima in Second Life. The next thing I want to talk about is a bit of tech news, and this one I have to say is especially for you, Ricky. Elden Ring has a new VR mod in development, which allows you to play the game in first person. And it's been created by a modder called Luke Ross. He's done lots of other VR mods for things like Red Dead Redemption 2 and I think GTA as well, are games that he's created VR versions for. We'll put a link in his to his channel in the show notes, so you can kind of find out a little bit more about it. There's a really nice little video which shows you what it looks like on YouTube, which we'll also put in the show notes. But basically, it's something to have a look at if you like looking inside a dragon's mouth. So, Ricky, over to you on that one, I think.
Well, I hadn't heard of this particular development, although it makes sense because the user base for Elden Ring is just massive. It's still continuing to sell like crazy. And the Let's Play Machinima creators for Elden Ring are just over, there must be a million there. Wow. There are some that have gone over 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 views, showing how they access certain areas, how they work on defeating certain bosses, discover certain parts of the world, how to organize your weapons and all of that stuff. There hasn't been any, and I haven't looked seriously because I've been too busy actually playing the game, but I haven't really seen any pure machinima being done from it, in which there's a story-based a story with characters that is shot in the world. I suspect that's going to come after the first wave of interest in the program is over, although as it's going now, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's still early days though, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's only been out for what?
A month?
Since 2 months, I think, you know.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, if you go into YouTube and you type Elden Ring Let's Play, you will get a list of thousands and thousands and thousands. In fact, this game, I've accessed more online content for this game than any other I've ever played, partially because it's just so damn hard and you need people to help you, veterans, help you solve the problem. I'm a much better player now than I was before, but I'm still not even near some of the guys who and girls too, which I was really happy to see. A lot of women are participating. But the VR mode would be very, very interesting because the beauty and gothic nature of this world, which is a ruined world, you come across ruins and caves and things that are non-necessarily play areas. You're not fighting or you're not questing or anything like that, but just the stark beauty of the world is amazing. And I think seeing that in VR would just be a stunning experience because the lighting and the rain and the desolate and beauty, and then all the careful detail they went to creating the flowers and the plants, the world, the ecosphere of it is just stunning, just stunning.
Yeah, well, I look forward to an update from you on that in due course. So.
Indeed, when I finish my first playthrough, I'm going to start a new character, which is just going to be using the photo mod. And I'm going to go in and take photos and videos of interesting things that are not necessarily connected to the game. We're going to talk about an artist named David Blandy in our film section who uses GTA 4 in just this way. You know, GTA 4 has the content, or GTA 5, excuse me, has content that is, you know, crime-based, urban-based, but he steps outside of it, and you can find all sorts of interesting things there that have nothing to do with that theme. And that's what I hope to do with Elden Ring.
Didn't you tell us that last month? Have you still not finished your first run through on it yet?
Well, it's a curious thing. I had a character and then I abandoned it after about 80 hours, and I went to another character, and I have that character about, 2 or 3 steps towards finishing it. And I stopped it and I started a new character. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing that. But for some reason, I'm just avoiding finishing the game.
Oh.
I don't know why, but it's just happening, and I'm just following my instinct. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. But going back on the third playthrough, it's much easier for me. And I think that's what I like. The level of hardness the first time I went through was so high that you'd go into an area and you'd literally die 50 times, 75 times. And it would become so frustrating that you just said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. But then you reason with yourself and you go, no, just stay with it. So I think now that I know how everything works, this third playthrough is the actual playthrough that I think a veteran of the games would have, because they know everything. They know how everything works. But we'll see. You know, I'll finish that second character, who is a mage, which is very easy to play. And I'll report on that. I'll definitely keep everybody up to date on it.
Yeah, definitely like to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple more bits for you.
Oh my God, Tracy.
Yeah, sorry, I told you I got loads this month. I just kept collecting stuff, and I just want to share it all with you. So next, the developers over at Roblox are working on real-time motion capture of facial animation for their avatars.
Huh.
It's not part of the game yet, but it's something that's coming down the road and clearly has potential, I think, for animating facial performance for machinima creators. So I think it's a really interesting development to watch out for. We'll give you an update as and when it takes off. And then in another sensory vein, a VR chat mod is being developed that helps you feel virtual content using the B haptic system. I don't know if you've come across that. I think this has lots of future potential for machinima too, particularly for immersive storytelling. But so far, I'll be honest, I haven't seen very much done with it at all. So if anybody's picking this up at all, I'd be really interested to see and hear about some of the projects that you're working on with this kind of kit for filmmaking in particular. That's the kind of the haptic feedback systems. And then with this one, I want to give thanks to Chantal Harvey for highlighting it. Great article on the Shopify website, which has reviewed the best free video editing software available for 2022. So if you want a side-by-side comparison, it's a pretty good read. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I've got a bit of project news as well, which I'd like to share with you. First of all, if you are thinking about the potential of Nvidia Omniverse as a creative platform, FSFilmz, another of the judges on the Machinima contest, has made a nice little cyberpunk short. And on the back end of that video, it's a kind of how it was made overview. So it's a kind of enjoyable informational. It's kind of an interesting approach to doing the tutorial. I really liked it. And then finally, our good friend Pooky Amsterdam, who was one of the first and most prolific machinima creators in Second Life, is in the process of developing a stage musical of the Metaverse experience. It's called Mambo Motel, and it's basically the first metaverse play to be created. Now, I have to say, she shared the script with me, and I was involved in a run through of it as she was working out the wrinkles of it. It's really great fun. Has some fantastic original songs in it. I think there are 16 original songs in it that she's written. And well, it's just everything that you come to expect from Pooky. Now, she's in the process of pulling together her team of creators. I think she's just about there on that. She's got she's got Ben Tuttle, who's on the creative team side of things as well, which is great to see. Because the next stage that they're going to be working at is doing the creative side and then looking for funding to actually get it on the stage as well. So if you're interested in backing a great original project, then this is definitely something to follow. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. It's going to be shown first in New York. I'm going to go over there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it on the stage there, and hopefully we'll see it on the stage in the UK as well at some point.
Kudos to Pooky, who has been a stalwart in machinima for over a decade.
Yeah.
That's a very creative idea, and I'm really glad to hear about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm honored to be on the advisory board of it as well. So yeah, can't wait to see that one. That's it for me this month. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, that was a long one.
Oh yeah, lots of interesting news. All right, so thank you for excellent news, Tracy and Ricky. Thank you all for listening, and please send us your feedback as we discussed at the beginning of the episode. We will read it out. So we're going to go and discuss our films next week. So come back for us to see what we've chosen. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.